A self-obsessed TikTok star, along with her mother, was recently on trial for murder after her mother's affair with one of her fanboys went sour. The two formed a strange revenge plot to get back at him, which quickly got completely out of control. This story starts back in the 90s, when a man named Ali Raza from Pakistan was all set to marry a young woman named Ansreen who was living out in the UK. Ansreen was Pakistani herself, but she had been living in the UK since she was very young, citizenship and all. Once the two finally got married, Ali moved out to the UK to live with his new wife and start a family. When a family was out in the USA for a while back in 1999 on business, their daughter, Mahek, was born. A few months later, the family moved back to Pakistan for a bit and then eventually back to the UK. Despite being from a devout Muslim family, Mahek went on to attend St. Margaret Ward Catholic Academy. She then went on to study fashion at Newcastle College before going on to Manchester Metropolitan University. After a while though, she started gaining a lot of followers on Instagram and TikTok, where she was known as Maybe Vlogs. Mahek, now 24 years old, was practically living on social media. She has 120,000 followers on TikTok, 38,000 on Instagram, and 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. With her biggest following being on TikTok, that's where a lot of her focus went. Being TikTok, most of the videos were exactly what you would expect. You've got dances, tastelessly showing off wealth, and memes. At this point, people who knew Mahek would go on to say that she was, quote, entirely self-obsessed. She bought an Audi with some of her influencer money, which she was very proud of, and started showing off all of her sponsorships. Mahek's mother, Ansreen Bukhari, was now working as a pharmaceutical dispenser. She had first been taken aback by her daughter's newfound fame, but eventually she became infatuated with the lifestyle. She even started appearing in a good number of Mahek's videos with her and helping her out at events she attended. This video right here is one of their most well known due to Mahek describing her relationship with her mother as an elite relationship. Mahek had a lot of acquaintances and casual friends, but she didn't really have any close friends. Over time, her mother started to fill this void. The two became inseparable, with Ansreen even mingling with Mahek's much younger friends. One of these friends was a man named Saqib Hussain. Mahek and Saqib had first met about a year prior to this point in the story after he walked up to her and her mother at an event. Being a big fan of Maybe Vlogs, he introduced himself. Saqib was only 21 years old, but he got along well with the 46-year-old Ansreen. Too well, you could say. Ansreen soon began cheating on her husband with Saqib after just a short while. Mahek, being more of a friend than a daughter to her mother at this point, knew of the affair. At first, she said hearing about the affair broke her, but it seems that she must have accepted it at some point. The affair would continue for 3 years up until January of 2022, when Ansreen finally started to feel some regret and decided to break it off. The problem was, by this point, Saqib had numerous nudes of Ansreen on his phone, along with videos of the two in the act. These videos could easily ruin Ansreen's marriage if they were to ever get out. Saqib did not want the affair to end. He started frantically trying to contact Ansreen, obsessively professing his love for her over and over again. After his attempts fell flat time and time again, he decided to resort to a much more immoral strategy. He threatened to show the images on his phone to Ansreen's son and husband if she didn't get back together with him. Mahek, upon hearing about this, was very concerned about the impact it could have on her family. More than that, though, she was worried about her image and the effect that this might have on her social media career. After all, her mother was a regular participant in her videos. Her mother getting together with one of her fanboys might give her a little bit of a bad reputation, even get her cancelled. She knew she had to act. Mahek decided that she needed to get a hold of Saqib's phone at all costs. She wanted those images gone. She decided to round up a group of some of her rougher friends, including some of her fanboys, to intimidate Saqib into handing it over. In an attempt to calm her mother down, she sent her a message on WhatsApp saying, "I'll soon get him jumped by guys and he won't know what day it is." Saqib had spent quite a bit of money on Ansreen in the time that they were fooling around, and he wanted that money back if the two weren't going to get back together. Mahek knew about this, so she offered to give him the £3,000 he wanted if he would just meet up with her. So they arranged to meet up in a parking lot in Leicester in the early hours of the morning. Nobody was bringing any money. All they really wanted was the phone. Mahek began to set the trap up. She began to piece together a little group of thugs to get the job done. She had them all wear balaclavas, which looked like ski masks, and wait in the car for maximum intimidation. She would then use them to threaten Saqib into handing over the phone. Simple. She spoke to Rakan Karwan, who worked as an in-between with the other members of the group. A man named Raiz Jamal decided to take the role of the fixer. He had a pretty big crush on Mahek and wanted to impress her. Despite that, he was actually already in a relationship with a woman named Natasha Akhtar, who would also be participating as a lookout. They then got a few other guys together, Sanaf Gula Mustafa and Amir Jamal, to increase their numbers. Saqib asked his friend, 21-year-old Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin, for a favor. He just needed a ride out to the parking lot. It's unclear if Hashim knew of all the details behind what was going on, but he agreed in the end regardless. The two drove out to an empty parking lot in a silver car to meet Mahek and grab the money. CCTV footage shows that the two arrived at the lot at 1:17 a.m. After seeing the other people in the cars there wearing masks, they knew something was up and it likely wasn't anything good. So even before getting out of the car, they decided to drive away in less than a few seconds. Shortly after, the other two cars left the lot as well, making chase. When Saqib and Hashim had to slow down at a roundabout, the blue car driven by some of the thugs was able to catch up to them. Mahek's car, her Audi, soon ran a red light just to catch up. Before too long, all three cars were driving in a line. Mahek and her friends called Saqib and Hashim repeatedly, over and over, while chasing them. They demanded that the two men pull over, threatening to harm them if they didn't. Mahek and her friends used their cars to box in Saqib and Hashim before turning onto the A46 highway, going at speeds near 100 miles per hour. This was when Saqib made a frantic phone call to the police. In the call, Saqib said, "There's guys following me, they have balaclavas on. They're trying to ram me off the road. They're trying to kill me, I'm going to die. Please sir, I just need your help. They're hitting the back of my car, really fast. Please, I'm begging you, I'm going to die." A scream was then heard before the call was abruptly cut off. Mahek's friends in the blue car had rammed Saqib and Hashim off the road. Their car hit a barrier and then slammed into a tree so hard that the car split in two, the engine became unattached from the vehicle and the whole thing erupted into flames. Neither Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin nor Saqib Hussein survived. Mahek and her crew were seen stopping at a junction with two of them stepping out of the car to check for damages. They then hopped back into the car and drove off. By now, police, firefighters, and paramedics had arrived to the crash site. Once the fire was extinguished, they pulled two bodies out of the smoldering metal. Later, CCTV footage showed Mahek and the others walking down the streets of the Gypsy Lane area of Leicester during the early hours of the morning as the sun was rising, making their way home. It's believed that they were, at this point, having a good conversation and trying to get their stories straight. Police, reviewing all the footage they had collected, started working towards tracking down the blue car and the Audi. It was very clear by now that the crash was no accident, and it wasn't too long before they tracked down the blue car. Natasha Akhtar was driving it back home to Birmingham when the police caught her on the way and arrested her. Upon investigating the car, police found damage consistent with colliding with the rear of the silver car. Somehow, likely by looking at the victims' phones, the police were able to conclude that Ansreen and Saqib were having an affair. Not only that, her daughter had an Audi TT. This immediately made Ansreen a suspect in the case, so the police headed out to her home to talk to her. The police showed up to the Bukhari home, where both Ansreen and Mahek lied about where they had been, feigning ignorance. While Mahek's brother was being asked about the car, she broke away to make a phone call to Raiz Jamal. It was very clear that she was telling him that the police were now on their trail. This was when she learned that Natasha had already been caught and arrested. Now they needed to adapt and change their story. Mahek and Ansreen were told to hand over their phones and give their PIN numbers to the officers. Mahek gave them a fake number, and once the police tried to use it, the phone reverted back to factory settings, erasing all of the data. There was one thing that Mahek forgot to take into account, though. Erasing all of the data off her phone didn't erase any of the data from her iCloud account. Due to this, it wasn't too long before the detectives were able to get their hands on that data. The two women were arrested shortly after and taken in for interrogation. Now, Mahek's story had changed quite a bit. She told the police that the two were trying to get to Nottingham but ended up in Leicester due to some construction on the roads. When asked how she knew Saqib, she said that the two had dated for a short while and that's why she had his number. She still acted as if she had no idea what was happening on the highway, claiming that she and her mother were simply driving along when a silver car and a blue car started getting extremely close to her. She said that she had no idea who was in the other cars. She said that soon enough she heard a loud bang as the blue car hit the silver car. She said that she cried as she prayed for the people in the silver car to be okay. After it was revealed that her story wasn't quite adding up, she conceded a bit, saying that she did have issues with Saqib. She said that he had been cyberbullying her and that he demanded a good chunk of money to stop. That's why, she said, she was meeting him in that parking lot. The police didn't really buy it. She and all of her cohorts were soon charged with murder. It wasn't too long before they were all appearing in court. Given Mahek's TikTok fame, this trial was sure to be a public spectacle. The judge, Timothy Spencer, said, "The prosecution categorized this as a story of love, obsession, and extortion, and they are right. They were also right in categorizing this case as one of cold-blooded murder." The judge added that he felt as if Mahek was very childish, telling her, "You are immature below your years." He watched her throughout the trial, feeling that she tended to behave inappropriately. He didn't hold back when voicing his opinion of her, adding, "Your fame through your career as an influencer has made you utterly self-obsessed with a wholly unjust sense of self-entitledness." Mahek didn't really seem to have any self-awareness. She didn't seem to understand the gravity of the situation. She didn't see the damage she had done. The judge said that the solution she came up with to solve her mom's problems, rounding up some of her simp followers, really showed her warped sense of values. Addressing Ansreen, the judge told her that she was the only one in this group that wasn't in her 20s and she should have behaved like the adult, but she didn't. He couldn't help but feel it pathetic that she was so entranced by her daughter's social media career and fan base that she was willing to ruin her marriage to be a part of it. He said, "There were so many instances you could have put a stop to this unfolding tragedy. At every turn, you made the wrong choice." The prosecutors presented their evidence, including the WhatsApp messages. It was very evident that this whole act was premeditated to an extent, with the crash likely being a split-second decision when things went wrong. The judge played Saqib's call to emergency services to the court, saying that it was one of the most moving and distressing pieces of evidence ever heard in a criminal court. Hashim's father spoke out to the court, saying that his son was innocent in all of this. He couldn't believe that Mahek and her crew didn't at least call emergency services to help his son, saying, "They left him and his friend to burn in a furnace of hell." Saqib's family have said, in a statement made on their behalf, that they had been left as two lifeless corpses, unable to even eat or sleep since they had heard about what happened to their son. Also sentenced for murder were the fellow defendants Rakan Karwan, age 29, and Raiz Jamal, age 23, who were both recruited by the Bukharis and driving the pursuing car. It turns out that Raiz was actually already serving a sentence for sexual assault by the time this trial came around, complicating things a bit. Both of the fathers of the victims started to spend nearly all of their time in the courtroom as the trial progressed, despite living pretty far away. But they really needed to see justice served. Mahek, after the trial grew long, started getting more and more strange. She would smile and laugh carelessly throughout the trial and happily play board games while in custody. Even while the jury was deliberating on their verdict, she casually played Uno as she waited. She even waved and laughed at reporters outside the building. The courtroom was packed as it came time for a verdict to be made. And then that verdict came back. Guilty. The 7 defendants showed very little reaction, either staring straight ahead or looking down at their feet. The whole ordeal was finally at an end. Natasha Akhtar was sentenced to 11 years and 8 months for manslaughter. Rakan Karwan was jailed for life with a minimum of 26 years and 10 months. Amir Jamal was jailed for 14 years and 8 months for manslaughter. And then Sanaf Gula Mustafa was sentenced to 14 years and 9 months in prison for manslaughter. When it came to Raiz Jamal and the sentence he was currently serving, things were a bit more complicated. The judge decided to tack on the remainder of his current sentence to his brand new sentence, life with a minimum of 36 years and 45 days. And then we have the Bukharis. Ansreen Bukhari was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 26 years and 9 months. Finally, her daughter, Mahek Bukhari, was jailed for life with a minimum of 31 years and 8 months in prison. As she was taken away into custody, Mahek blew a kiss to her dad, saying, "Call me," as she was hustled away. A football/soccer tournament was held in memory of Hashim. The football team that he previously participated in had even changed their name to Hashim United in his honor. They decided that his legacy shouldn't end in his death and that they would carry on making good deeds in his name. They started selling merchandise to raise money for a few causes, to build a water filtration plant in Africa and to build a mosque in Pakistan. Muhammad Hussein, one of Hashim's former team members, said, "In our religion, when a man dies, his good deeds come to an end, except 3: ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, and a righteous child who will pray for him. This hadith teaches us that we can still commit good acts on their behalf for Allah's sake. Mahek's TikTok account, Maybe Vlogs, is still up as of the making of this video, serving as a bizarre reminder that the people you see online may not be as bright and kind as they appear. You never know what people might be capable of, and she's living proof of that. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found this video interesting, please give it a like, it helps me out in the algorithm, and go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Follow me on social media if you want, I post stuff there, and I've got channel memberships open now as well. If you want to support the channel even further, I do have a Patreon account which I always keep linked down in the description below. This has been your host Kyle, thank you, and good night.